Yeah, dear friends, I know it's always after lunch a bad slot to start, but I'm grateful you are here. We are competing not only against lunch, but also against the sun, which I think will break through now for the first time, at least that I've been here. And that goes without saying, against this backdrop, we are, of course, happy to have you here in the room to focus in this session on an extremely important topic, explicitly how new technology and digitalization can help us reduce or shift consumption of energy away from peak hours, and as well to provide opportunities for consumers to lower their bills and get access to a range of activities. This is one of the fundamental questions of the energy transition towards climate neutrality. And I'm very happy that today the introduction to this very important topic will be given to us by Ivo Janniso. He is the Director General from Estonia, responsible for one of the key sectors, buildings. And Ivo, the floor is yours now. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Ulrich. It's a great pleasure to be here, great honor. At such an important moment in time to be at such an important global audience to present you what we're doing in Estonia in terms of energy efficiency. I was thinking to myself that why am I here as an Estonian representative? Maybe because of our clean nature, maybe because of our digital government, perhaps because our humanitarian and military aid to Ukraine is the highest per capita. I think, well, there are many things that we can talk about. But today I will talk about the situation where we're at. We're the northernmost country that has endured Soviet occupation. We know pretty well the harsh reality of a potential Putin regime, and we will do anything that can be done to resist it. Energy efficiency, we might say, is as good or similar deterrence to a NATO membership. It's a matter of survival, so it's really important for us. Estonia, the land size is the same as Denmark, as Belgium, Switzerland, but we have 1.3 million people, so 5 to 8 times less people than those countries, so we have to be more efficient. We have to take more added value from our small amount of people. So how to tackle this energy efficiency issue in a smart way? First, to manage the transition towards energy efficient economy, we need clear targets that can be measured. And the system of measuring itself must be reliable and work in real time. We need accurate, up-to-date data of all buildings in the country. The current system of energy performance certificates, which show static information, it helps us to some extent, but more is needed for a holistic approach. In Estonia, the technical data of all buildings is available in a central digital building logbook. In addition, thanks to the wide use of heat meters, we can observe the energy use of most buildings in the country. And those which we can't, we can use statistical predictive models, so even then to have a best overview about the building stock and about the energy use in the whole country. By combining the data of energy use together with the technical data of buildings, we can compare the energy use per square meter area or per other units. The data is accurate, real-time, and useful, as the impact of energy efficiency improvements are visible in a very short time, even in advance. If we learned anything from the COVID pandemic, then besides energy efficiency, we need to talk about other values. For example, healthy indoor climate. It must be in focus. We can't only insulate, we also need to provide sufficient ventilation. Therefore, for instance, measuring devices for indoor CO2 should be applied too. which can also be attached to a central building network and also the network of the whole country, so to measure the indoor climate of buildings in the whole country. But this better data is well, not useful by itself. It enables better decisions, so decisions at the political level as well. Energy efficiency investment decisions are difficult at the building level. With very large costs to many stakeholders, the joint understanding of the benefits is needed. So for that, we need the guidance and one-stop shops to model the process as efficiently as possible. In Estonia, thanks to the government-funded foundation, CREDEX, we have provided this knowledge to the market for 20 years. There are consultant networks in the whole country in different layers available to all building owners. Sharing knowledge can be transformed with digital methods as well. With accurate data of buildings, it is simple to model the payback period of renovations in different variations. And machine learning can be helpful. Machine learning with predictive methods can be applied to target the buildings with the highest energy efficiency potential. So the government can start negotiating with concrete building owners, which is a really, really great effect in terms of communication. In a couple of years, the services, perhaps in the form of energy performance contracting, can be more widely successful thanks to this well-functioning data infrastructure. Thanks to sufficient data of energy consumption, we can also detect underused or abandoned buildings. Due to urbanization, this unfortunately happens. This gives us a good overview of locations where governmental support can help people move from very poor conditions to fully occupied energy-efficient homes, which is also part of energy efficiency policy. In addition, this design and construction processes require change. We need to build ourselves out from this situation. With the energy transition, we cannot afford to be inefficient. We have to be efficient. Design requires automation, and construction should apply industrial methods. This has become feasible only recently. The benefits are clear. Industrialization saves time and resources, while also providing better quality, what better values to have. There are some apartment buildings as prototypes that were recently completely renovated with prefabricated elements. So basically, old Soviet-era buildings renovated in a factory without people living in the buildings even noticing. They achieved the highest energy performance class, which is the norm for new buildings. So we really want to use that great experience with other buildings. And we are going to scale up. So next year there will be more than 20 similar prefabricated renovations of the Soviet-era high-rise buildings. 20 might sound a small number, but for Estonia it's pretty much, and it needs to go on and on in next following years. And we are certain that the trend of industrial renovations will continue in the following years. And mass renovation of mass-produced buildings is a no-brainer, but of course we need to make sure that buildings will get modern methods of industrial practices and will contribute to the best possible living environment that we can imagine. With new construction too. Attention to efficiency must go together with quality of our built environment. So in Estonia for several years, 90% of grants for apartment high-rise building renovations have been used for major renovation. So that means they include central ventilation with heat recovery. And we have solved it so that it's as less invasive as possible. The piping is taken to the external core of the building, inside insulation, which is a great example of providing good indoor quality in old Soviet buildings, but now completely modernized. In the heart of our second largest city, Tartu, we recently completed the renovation of 17 apartment buildings to the highest standards. This was done, in fact, in partnership with the city that we are at today, Sönderborg. Sönderborg did the same with 45 buildings. They include also demand-controlled central ventilation system, which makes those buildings healthy and feel like new, both from outside and inside. They modernize the whole center of our second largest city. So I'm convinced that our current technology provides opportunities to remodel our built environment completely and efficiently. The key to success is dedicated work on innovation and funding. We have been really fortunate to develop these four mentioned initiatives with a benefit from European Union budget. But there's still much more to achieve, especially in scaling up. And achieving scale, of course, helps us to lower costs and provide more quality. And real opportunities are where large building contractors can intervene, and we're really trying to tap into this. We need to scale up. With clever policy actions, this can be done. So let's use the technology in a smart way to guide us towards this energy efficient and safe economy where we could enjoy living in. Let's do it together. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, many thanks, Ivo. What you're describing is certainly a very, very promising path to retrofit buildings, in particular in Eastern Europe. We have similar discussions in Germany, in particular in the East. So congratulations, you are really at the forefront of an extremely tough job. And thanks for your introductory remarks, which I think ideally set the scene now for our panel discussion. But before I introduce the panel, I would briefly like to introduce myself. My name is Ulrich Benterbusch. I'm Deputy Director General in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Protection in Berlin. And I'm responsible, among other things, for energy efficiency and gaseous energy carriers. I'm here in my capacity as chair of the Energy Efficiency Hub at the IEA. This is an institution that is existing now for 2 years, an institution that encompasses 16 members, IEA members and non-OECD or IEA members, and we collaborate together to advance energy efficiency in our countries, and we are reaching out to other countries that we would like to entice also to collaborate with us to impact on the global agenda on energy efficiency, because that is so important. And as you all know, we have a lot of technologies available which we need to use in order to get, the climate change under control. And with that, and with no further delay, I would like to introduce our first panelist, Mrs. Reena Suri. She is from India and the Executive Director of the Smart Grid Forum, a public-private partnership initiative to accelerate the development of smart grid technologies in the Indian power sector. And Reema, I'm very happy that you are here. And you have now the first slot to, report a little bit on what you're doing in India.
Very good afternoon to all. Am I audible? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, very good afternoon to all, and I wish to take this opportunity to thank International Energy Agency for having me here as part of this esteemed panel. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be part of IEA's 7th Global Conference on Energy Efficiency in this beautiful city of Sonnenberg. So the approach to decarbonization we are pursuing is to electrify each and every activity, household activity, be it agriculture, be it transportation, and then decarbonize the power sector. The total energy consumption, that we have seen in 2020, it's been 26,700 terawatt hour, and it is estimated that going forward, it will be close to 46,700 terawatt hour in 2050. So in order to electrify, the industrial sector alone, we require several times more electricity than the global generation. And hence the decarbonizing the industrial sector, we must pursue or implement some the non-polluting energies, which could be hydrogen, which could be like energy efficiency and demand flexibility, etc. So energy efficiency, as we have heard from different panelists in today and yesterday's deliberations, it is the cheapest and the fastest among the these several proven solutions which can be scaled up at a very fast track. And increasing energy efficiency is an important short-term measure to reduce the power demand while we are planning to shift to renewables, and it's also the important long-term measure to prove demand, exceeding supply, and when the global grid is planning to run on renewable energy. So India has done exceedingly well in bringing, energy efficiency in the energy efficiency side in the last 2 decades. The Energy Conservation Act by Government of India in 2001, it provided regulatory mandates for standards and labeling of equipment and appliances, energy conservation building codes for commercial buildings, and energy consumption norms for energy-intensive industries were also put in place. So under the star labeling program that Government of India brought in for appliances, we have like 10 mandatory and around 17 voluntary items that have been included. And an annual electricity saving from these star-rated appliances has touched close to 86 terawatt hour, and that is approximately 7.14% of the total consumption that in the country by 2018 that we have saved, and which is close to around $7.5 billion of annual savings that we have yielded from this program. And it has also helped us reduce the carbon emission of about 108 MTOE annually. So similarly, another very successful program that Government of India has launched, which is for LED lamps scheme, which is called Ujala. And with this, under this scheme, we have distributed close to 366 million lamps, LED lamps, and which has helped us accumulate a saving of about 47.5 terawatt hour, and per year of saving, and carbon emissions close to 3.85 MTOE per year we are yielding from this scheme. And so peak load reduction achieved from this scheme is about 10 gigawatt, and has also helped us create close to 80,000 to 100,000 jobs as part of this program. So these successful initiatives are being recognized globally and are being emulated in many countries. And to summarize, I would like to say that the key is to identify, design, develop, and implement energy efficiency actions, and do this on a continuous basis so that the jobs, the sustainable livelihoods, and economic growth are the benefits that we see forever. So thank you. Over to you. Yeah.
Many, many thanks, Rina. That's impressive and encouraging at the same time to see that there is so much going on in India concerning energy efficiency and progress in this regard. Now I would like to turn to Jens-Peter Clausen. He is Vice President for Engineering, Advanced Technology Innovation at Google Data Center, and leading the global technology product and process innovation for Google Data Centers. Jens-Peter, we all know that data center consume a lot of electricity and produce a lot of heat as well. What is the contribution of Google, to save the planet?
Yeah, thank you for asking, and also thank you for all the people in the room that is on their phone right now connected to a data center. It's really useful to know that you're using our data centers in your daily life. But don't worry, we have you covered, because we are doing quite a bit for sustainability and energy efficiency. As you know, Google's mission is all about organizing the world's information and make it universal, accessible, and useful. And I think it's very important that everything is grounded in that mission. And that's why we're really all here, to ensure that we actually are providing and organizing that information. We consider ourselves as a global leader in the world to ensure that we actually are contributing to kind of like the sustainable and also the energy efficiency agenda that is going on worldwide right now. And of course, we have a stake in the game and we want to contribute. We have three business areas where we think it's important to think about. One of them being that we lead actually our own operations efficient and sustainable. And we can say that, and I have some data a little bit later, and we'll share some more information about this. We're also supporting our partners, specifically cloud customers and billions of users to operate efficient and sustainable. And we also are enabling everyone to make sustainable choices and efficient choices when they are using our search engine, as an example. So I think it's important that those three pillars are really what we're trying to elevate when it comes to the contribution to energy efficiency and also the sustainability of energy. Our belief is that digital solutions, and I think it's important that you pay attention to this part about that the digital solution is driving energy savings and efficiency in every sector. And I think that's important because all the sectors can learn from each other. So it's not like just because I'm in this sector, I don't care about the other sectors. We are providing information and data to everyone to be successful in their pursuit of more energy-friendly solutions and, of course, the efficiency agenda as well. I think what you should remember is that the digital technology as such actually helps you save energy. And this is by making this information accessible so we can turn insight into actions. And let me explain a little bit more. And also, if you look at the Repower European plan, it's also calling for greater ambitions in 4 areas. Again, energy efficiency, it's increasing the renewables, it's the electrification, and it's also like solving bottlenecks, right? Peak hours and whatnot. So those bottlenecks have to be solved. What we do at data centers, which I'm particularly interested in because I'm kind of like innovating, the next designs worldwide of data centers, is that we power this digital technology and solutions from our data centers, and we lead the way for our promises to be efficient. And data centers, even though they're kind of like mentioned quite a lot in the news, is using only 1% of the total energy in the world. And we can say that because in the meanwhile, since 2010, the internet traffic have increased 15x, but we're still 1% of the total energy. And I think that's quite impressive, and it can only be done by energy efficiencies. The other thing is that we all use, and I just made you an example, we all use it in our daily life at work. We also use it when we're connected remotely or everywhere we are, right? So we are using the services of Google or other providers, for that matter, wherever we are, right? So it's important that you feel that it's kind of like there's a company and companies behind that wants to make a difference when it comes to efficiencies and sustainability. Our Google data centers are typically twice as efficient as the industry average. And that's actually quite impressive if you think about it. If we compare to 5 years ago, we deliver 7x more compute power with the same energy. So think about how much calculation we are providing for the same energy consumption. And that's because we are continuing to refine and fine-tune our operations. And of course, we have lots more work to do. We are very humble when it comes to all the things that we can learn. Remember, Google is only in the early 20s, and you can think about yourself, and when you were 20, right, there's definitely a lot we can learn, and there's a lot of things that we don't know about yet, but we will definitely understand when we move into even a better world of sustainability and energy efficiency. We promise that we will continue to improve to operate carbon-free everywhere 24/7 before 2030. I know that I can see Mads is here, and his company have been promising that it's in 2029, and I can only welcome the challenge. So let's see whether we can get there in the same time, but at least our promise is in 2030. So how are we doing it, is the question, right? So how do we actually think about the actions behind all the intentions? Well, we have used machine learning as one example to our cooling solutions, such that we actually have improved 30% in our cooling of our data centers by using machine learning algorithms. And that's have actually been quite impressive. And just think about if we roll that out to all industries, that could be quite impressive. And we have an impressive PUE, which is basically the power efficiency conversion of 1.1. And I think that's the world or industry leadership that we are carrying by really continuing to use methods to make our data centers efficient. We actually have some latest, like innovation when it comes to shifting load between data centers. So we have quite a bit of internet in the world, as you can know. We're probably sitting on 25 to 30% of the internet traffic, but we're actually moving most of it in between data centers. And one of the things we can do is to move IT load where the renewable energy is available. And that algorithm is quite impressive. And I've seen some of the whole thing play out, and it's quite some food for thought when you see that we're actually moving IT workloads where the sun is shining, right? The other thing we are doing is that all the energy we use is carbon free. So that means that we are purchasing energy, and we are one of the largest purchaser of renewable energy in the world, actually. And it's quite impressive how much energy we are contracting and how much we are adding to the grid, not buying from the grid, but adding of capacity to the grid. So again, when you see all the 4x of wind turbines in this country or the European countries, some of it is actually coming from our power purchase agreement that we are signing up for long term to actually buy renewable energy. And I think that's quite, at least it makes me feel quite valuable. And I also don't want to make sure that we are, again, only matching it on a yearly basis, but an hourly basis. And I don't know whether you're aware of what it means to match renewable energy on an hourly basis, but the sun is not always shining and the wind is not always blowing, right? So what are you doing when those things are happening? You need to find a solution on an hourly basis to still get renewable. So of course there have to be some storage or some other means and methods that we are innovating in the moment. The last one I will say is that we also try to make it easy for our cloud customers to actually move their workloads. Let's say that they do not have the capacity to do it themselves. They can actually move the workload into cloud, Google Cloud, and be confident that we are taking care of the efficiency and the sustainability, and thereby offset their, you can say, like their footprint in a good way, to be honest. And I think we also help like users, cities, and businesses to unlock their own journey of becoming 24/7 CO2 free, and by actually using one of the fast-growing AI engine that is out there. Last, I would like to say that if we make this data and information universally accessible and organizing it, you can actually turn those intentions into actions. And with that, I want to say thank you for listening.
Many thanks, Jens Peter. It's really impressive what you're describing, and it goes without saying. I think everybody is convinced that without digital technologies and, of course, collaboration with companies like Google, we're not going to make it. That's for sure. And with that, I would like to pass on to Nana Bull. She is CEO of Microsoft Denmark and Iceland. She brings with her and brings it to us now a lot of experience in the technology sector, including in several executive roles at Microsoft. And she has also a lot of experience advising founders and innovators. So, Nana, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will offer a slightly different perspective, not so much on the tech industry itself, but how technology is empowering decarbonization across industries. As I see it, critical infrastructure in the future will not only be based on cables and concrete, but also on bits and bytes. So if we look at it, we will need to establish the data infrastructure that will break down barriers between sectors and enable entirely new value chains. Data and intelligent technologies are the building blocks across both the future of our energy ecosystem, energy efficiency, but also the emerging carbon economy. To achieve net zero, we must detangle supply chains and value chains, surface the data across, and connect processes and players across sectors. We can only get there by collaborating and by innovating together, both as nations, but also as companies in different sectors. What is clear now, maybe more today than it has been to all of us earlier, is that a transition to renewable energy alone will not take us to the commitments of the Paris Agreement. We need energy efficiency to deliver as much carbon reduction as the transition to green electricity. I see that as an understanding that is both growing but also gaining traction, not least in the light of the current geopolitical tensions and the actual climate crisis we're in the midst of. As they say here at Danfoss, the greenest energy is the energy we don't use. I actually think that's a beautiful saying and something we should all remember. Also here at Danfoss, just as an example, and how digital solutions can actually support energy efficiency. If you take a visit to the supermarket here in one of the showcases, you will see digital solutions operating refrigerators for retail, reducing energy consumption by 30%, but also reducing food waste by 40%. So digital solutions are much more than what we use every day. It's the layer we build on top of every single industrial solution, any single building, or any single production line. For me, looking at the innovation in this space, the near-term innovation is going from these simple sensors and data collection to full-blown digital models, also referred to as digital twins, where we can get a full digital manifestation of an energy ecosystem, of a building, or of a production line to be able to do real-time optimization or predictive actions. At the core of all of this is, of course, access to data, both in real time but also aggregated across value chains. You're visiting the country of Denmark. We have a long history of cooperatives. It's a way of operating, for example, the dairy and the farming business in Denmark. And I think we need to assume a cooperative mindset when it comes to energy data. Building a cooperative approach where we all contribute a bit of data, our piece of the puzzle, in order to get back the full picture. But what's important is not necessarily to ensure someone owns all of that, but that we all contribute and get access to more data and to a broader picture. I think there were some good examples from JP as well, but also just here in the country, the Danish Energy Agency has just recently launched a solution where they couple energy consumption data, water utilities, and heating to enable a whole new energy ecosystem and to drive innovation, especially for buildings and cities in energy efficiency. We need more solutions like these, even on a global scale, coming together, collaborating, offering our piece of the puzzle for the bigger picture. This will foster new business models in digital energy efficiency solutions, but it will also establish the foundation for the whole new economy we're looking into of tracing, tracking, and eventually trading carbon. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks, Nana. And with that, we pass on the floor to Ludmila Lima da Silva. She comes from a different perspective. She is a regulator, So those are in business now have to stand up and be careful. She is a strong influencer of what you have to obey to in terms of regulation, because she's an advisor to the board at the Brazilian Electricity Regulatory Agency and an expert in electricity energy regulation. So as we have started with the grids and potential of saving, regulators, of course, play a key role here. And we are really keen and happy to have you here and looking forward now to your contribution.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm very glad to be here, and I would like to thank the International Agency for the invitation. I'd like to bring the perspective from the regulator and from an emerging country regulator. So Brazil is now facing a great challenge, looking after all the innovations and seeking the proper way to put these in the public policies and regulations. We are in a movement that we call the modernization of the electric sector in Brazil. And the main goal of this process is to promote the market opening in order to increase competition in Brazil. And doing this, we need to consider different scenarios, such as the digitalisation of the sector, the new role of consumers. We are now talking about the omni-consumers, that the consumers are dealing in different areas. They consume energy, but they also produce energy. And we should consider that when we talk about bringing innovations to the sector and reflecting that in the policies and in the regulation. And we also must keep in mind that we need to continue thinking about environmental sustainability. When you talk about energy efficiency, we have to look to the other side. We need to keep providing energy, and we should seek for renewable energy. Brazil has, in its electric matrix, 80% of renewable energy. So that's important to keep in the transition to clean energy. In Brazil, the consumers that are connected to the utilities, and the utilities must contract energy from energy auctions. In the last 5 years, these energy auctions contract 75% of renewable energy. So I think we are dealing with the other side. Consider Brazil is an emerging country, and the demand for energy is increasing. It's important to work on both sides. We need to provide energy from renewable sources, and we also need to act to make more efficient the way we consume energy. Brazil has also launched RenovaBio. It's a public policy program that recognizes the strategic role of biofuels in our sector. And the program, we are aiming to get energy security, of course, but also to reduce emissions, to work on the decarbonization of the country. We are also improving our legal and regulatory framework to be up to date to all these innovations. We need to incorporate in our regulations smart grid, energy storage, electric mobility, in order to improve quality and services for the consumers. Brazil has also an energy efficiency program that applies a considerable amount of money to develop programs to incentivize the rational use of energy. We develop campaigns to incentivize the population to make a rational use of energy. We have some pilot projects regarding, for example, hospitals, to use solar in their process in order to have more efficient ways to consume energy. And we are developing some energy efficiency auctions to incentivize as part of this energy efficiency program. ANEEL conducts the R&D projects in Brazil, and we are also we have what we call strategic projects. We give some some goals for the industry that we say that's strategic for the country. You should do research and develop in order to improve our energy efficiency and the ways we produce energy, in the way we get back to the consumer and bring benefits. So that's my brief remarks for this first step. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks, Ludmila, for this. With that, I would like to ask you now, one after the other, another question with a view to the time. I think we don't have enough time for a second round. At the beginning, I was more ambitious, but the contributions you gave were so intriguing, so I didn't want to interrupt. Now, Dorina, when it comes to the opportunities that digital technologies can create for end-use efficiency and demand flexibility, how do you see that, Rina? It's for Rina.
Yes, digital technologies are supported by reliable communication systems, and that can help remote monitoring of equipments and appliances and energy consumption in real time. And what we are able to monitor and measure would help us, to optimize and reduce or eliminate the wastages that are there in the system. And the digital data collected from such remote monitoring systems could be analyzed with the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and tools to further optimize the system design, equipment sizing, and its efficient operations. So, for example, in buildings, we have seen that they consume about 40% of the energy, and a third of it is wasted, and often is often wasted. And with efficient building management systems, such wastages can be eliminated, and overall energy consumption can be reduced drastically. And the digital technologies could provide a complete visibility of the energy consumption, and all the way down to the appliance level. That's the kind of technologies we are looking forward to. And we have also seen that with increasing percentage of distributed renewable energy coming into the system, and on the power system, the demand flexibility has assumed highest importance. And digital platforms such as DERMS, the distributed energy resource management systems, they have helped and and manage and control the operations of distributed energy resources, including behind the meter resources such as rooftop photovoltaic, battery energy systems, at the customer premises. So in future, the kind of future we are envisioning is that every appliance would buy the cheapest green energy available from the grid through smart contracts executed maybe on a blockchain platform, and it runs its operations with intelligent, on its own, such as equipments like refrigerator, washing machines at home, in your large equipment, and robots in the factory. So they're all smart to be able to manage the operations and make use with the digital technology, make use of the most available green energy that is there in the system. And lastly, I understand that I would like to add that there's a lot of efficiency that has been brought here in the buildings and the systems in Sonderburg, and so I'm really looking forward to taking the learnings back and be able to implement that and leapfrog in our journey of bringing efficiency into the system.
Yeah, many thanks, Rina. That is an ideal contribution to pass on now a question to Jens Peter, because we have just heard from Rina how important data are. A smart home doesn't work without data, and a smart home doesn't work with the right policies and the right frameworks. So what can the private sector do, that governments are really able to agree on the right regulation and policies that would enable us? What would you expect from us?
Well, I think the best example I can share is the Energy Insight Explorer, which is basically a platform where you can get like information about cities. So how much emission is there actually from cities when it comes to buildings and transportations, and what is the potential of roof top solar, and what is actually the potential about measuring the pollution of cities, and measuring basically also the canopy, like the tree canopy that is in the cities, right? So think about it like we are helping today. At least there's like more than 1,000 cities already in our platform where we are contributing with data, so cities and officials can take the right measurement to eliminate some of the emission that is unfortunately coming from cities that we all are part of, right? So I would say that's one of them. Our ambition is to, with 500 different cities, to save 1 gigaton of CO2 per year with a collaboration that is based on data, right? So that's what we can bring and continue to bring, like machine learning and AI into the equation. I also think that we are reaching further than that, because our ambition is really like to get 20,000 cities in the platform, and I think that's where we're starting to get some data and some big data that can actually help. The other thing is that we are having our you say data and insight is also helping big cloud customers as well. In this case, we have like Engie, who is a big energy provider in France, that is also having like wind energy, right? And what they are trying to optimize is that how can they, sell their wind power on the short-term market and find the right market and prices in the right moment. And we have developed some AI algorithm to help them with that. Also, the big, there is another cloud provider called UPS. Or not cloud provider, but a cloud customer that provides transportation. That it's called UPS in the US, and they have been saving more than 10 billion gallons of fuels a year by using our map features and ensuring that we can actually help them again with optimizing their routes, so they go from A to B in the absolutely most fuel efficient way, right? So that's some of the examples that data is giving us, right?
Jens Peter, that was very intriguing, but I have to get back to my question, and that is, and was focused on, at least one part was focused on what would you expect from governments in terms of regulation and policies that you can do even a better job. Yeah. It's great what you just described, but if I understood correctly, that is done on your own. And of course, governments will need this data. I mean, if you look at IEA is about energy data. What would Fatih do without data? There wouldn't be any world energy outlook, right? But the question is, and that is my perception from, let's say, a government viewpoint, that consumers are very sensitive when it comes to data. And there are, let's say, restrictions to what data people will share. And there is a tension when it comes to energy efficiency and the gains that we can get through smart homes and things like that. But people need to be prepared to share data. And how shall we, with your help, and that's the question of the industry perspective, your perspective, what would you expect from governments, to facilitate that kind of data sharing? Maybe it's reciprocal what we have to do, but that is, of course, one thing I'm sure you're discussing internally as well, and you have certainly some ideas what you want from governments in this context.
Well, what we really need is, and this is, we are taking privacy extremely, security and privacy extremely serious. Yeah. And I really mean it really, really serious, because as you said, like there is information sharing needed to get the data that you need to actually make your decisions, right? So what we really would like from government is to respect that if users are allowing big companies like Google to actually get the data, that it should actually be okay for us to use it in good faith to actually get like improvements like energy efficiencies, right? As an example. So there have to be some collaboration about what can actually be done when it comes to privacy and security. But again, we're taking this extremely serious. So unless you say yes, or the utility companies say yes, or the cities are saying yes, we're not doing anything before we get that permission, right? And I think it's extremely important that we all drive, like a better information sharing with people understanding that they can trust that we're using it for the right purposes, right? So it's probably asking for some more trust in the purpose of what Google is about, and I think that mission I stated before is real, and we're deeply serious about helping. But we can only help if we have a data available. So it is a very difficult balance, just to be honest.
No, I do agree that this is a very difficult balance, but I think we need to discuss this, and this needs to be discussed in public, because if we beat around the bush all the time and not really attacking this sensitive issue and advancing here, then we can talk a lot about smart home, but the gains that we need in terms of energy efficiency and reduced consumption will never get it.
But from all the users, I just need you to flip this. Yes, let me share my data, right? And trust that it's used for something very productive. I think that's the first step, and all of us are doing that, because by all users, we can get a lot of insights. And then, of course, going into government, that they also flip the switch and saying, yes, you're allowed to gather data from our utility companies. And even you can go further and say that you have to share your data to make sure that it's available, for instance, in some of the tools that we're using to improve the city and get some better decision making for kind of like the energy efficiency and sustainability, right?
Yeah, thank you, Jens Peter. And with that, I would like to pass on to Nana. And the perspective is now again a bit different, because it's a question: what can industry, what can business contribute? That we reap more of the fruits that are promised by energy efficiency. And what kind of policies would you support for implementation? To get more benefits from energy efficiency policies.
So taking a perspective a little closer to home, or at least within EU, I think if you look at some of the regulation coming out of EU as part of the EU Green Deal, EU introduced this principle called energy efficiency first principle, which is really a great idea, but it's very superficial. It's quite high level. So what I would like to see is actually more specific guidance, if not regulation, on how do we ensure that this is actually lived up to. Because as I see it right now, there's a lot of investments rightfully going into the extension of renewable energy and build out, and we need it. India could consume the worldwide availability of green electricity just to decarbonize your industry. So we need that, but at the same time, we also need to prioritize investments in energy efficiency. And I don't see so many investments going that way. So if we look at it, I think the idea of this energy efficiency first principle is to look at energy efficiency as an energy source in itself, and to be more deliberate on building the models that can actually make the value assessment a little more realistic on how much do we get out of the money we invest. So I think a little more specific guidance on how do we live up to this energy efficiency first principle, how do companies work with it, I think could be good for the industry, because I think it would steer our investments. And then on the other side, I actually do think that regulation on data is hugely important, because I think the trust in technology and digitization is essential for us to move forward. As soon as we start talking about energy efficiency of buildings or cities even, you're very close to the consumer and to privacy. So while we need some data, I think some of the thinking from the Commission as well on data spaces, and back to my idea of this cooperative thought, that you don't necessarily need to own all the data. You could have a place where you make available data at an aggregated level, because then some of the security issues you might have with energy data, where you can drill down to the individual consumer, that would be eliminated. Because to be honest, our utility companies know everything about us. They know what time you're at home, how much TV you watch, when you cook. They know exactly how your life works and how it looks. So I think a combination of being open but creating safe spaces for our data, and then maybe adding in some regulation or some principles at least on aggregation levels for all of us to feel safe in a more digitized world.
Yeah, that's interesting, and in particular, that you say industry needs also when it comes to energy efficiency regulation. I think that's an important message, because on the one hand, of course, price signals do play a role. We see that, of course, with the high energy prices right now, in many of the European economies at least, I'm aware of. But I would always believe markets work, and if markets work, then price signals work, and then the price level does play a role. But on top of that, I think you are right that at a certain point when we have to take choices, regulation is important. And against the backdrop of where we stand with the climate crisis, I think it is also something that governments need to consider on top of the question of the data and privacy and all that. And with that, Ludmila, I would like to ask you how you see it from a regulator's viewpoint, because does regulation play a big role there as well, and what can you do? Because if regulators, at least in my perspective, follow the normal economic pathway, then they would invest probably in copper and not in digital technologies. Because with copper, they can earn much more than investing in a program of Microsoft, which is rather cheap. And how do you see this in relation to regulation from your viewpoint?
I see as a big challenge for the regulator. It's a big challenge. We need to seek modernization, seek for digitalisation of the sector. The data collect is very important. With the whole data from the smart homes and the consumer's profile, we can plan better our generation, our transmission system, our distribution system. We can work more efficiently, but we also have to be worried about, for example, cybersecurity. When you talk about a system that modernized, that is digital, we need to be careful of other things, and also like privacy, as you say. So it's a challenge to keep balance between these, but I think it's a way that we cannot run from. We need to pave this road. So we are working on that. We have a lot of discussion about this in Brazil. We are trying to improve studies relating to that, because I think we need to face these challenges, not just discuss about it. But it's hard, it's difficult. I probably don't have the solution, but it's something that we are discussing a lot. It's for the regulator is also a challenge.
Yeah, many thanks. That brings us to the end of this session. And I think there are a couple of takeaways that I would like to summarize. And one, I think, of the important and most important messages is we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The technologies are there. And we have representatives here that have proven that. So we need to apply what we have. And if we would do that, then we can reap already a lot of the gains that energy efficiency holds out there. That's, I think, one of the very basic messages. And then I think that for me was a bit of a surprise, but I really like that idea that the time is ripe for regulation, also in industry, that governments should not shy away from that, because regulation creates also a level playing field. It has to be, of course, in relation to competitiveness, that's clear. We don't want to suffocate economic activity, but it needs a level playing field in economies to reap energy efficiency. Again, that's important. And then I think we need to tackle the issue of data, privacy, and trust and confidence, because without trust and more trust in companies like Google, we're not going to make it. They are there, they are powerful, they're extremely powerful, we have to admit that. They're insurmountable, so to say, but we have to work together to convince each and everybody that we can trust them, and I think that will not work without decent and transparent government regulation. And I think, Ludmila, you made us aware that from the regulator's viewpoint, when it comes to the efficiency in the grid, it is not easy to solve the conflict when it comes to, to profitability of the grid. And that also needs smart regulation. And I can understand that the solution is not yet there, but to identify the problem is already the first step. So with that, I would like to thank each and everybody for listening and joining us, and I wish the conference a very good continuation. Many, many thanks.